spiritual healing and spiritual gurus are the biggest cope on this entire planet, you know. I know people like do spiritual healing for like therapy or whatever, but guys, every encounter I've had with these people, you know, these like spiritual people who like say like, oh, I can see into your future and all that bullshit. Like, let me tell you, when I went to the strip club years back, there's this stripper who, like, she was talking to me and my friend. She said she does like spiritual healing and guidance and all this bullshit, can tell your future, do readings or whatever. This shit is just so cringe and bizarre to me. Like, I don't understand like how people think all this shit is legit. But you know, I was sitting in my seat, she was sitting like on top like of me and shit, and she had her hand out, she put her hand on my forehead, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna tell your future and all of your problems, and it was so fucking weird. She was like making like slurping noises, like she put her fucking hand on my forehead, she was like, whoa, she was fucking like screaming, she's like, extracting from your third eye, and I was like, what the fuck, like this shit was so weird. And she said, I'm not even joking, she said, oh, I sense it, you're gonna get married in 6 months, oh, you're gonna have a baby in another 2 years, oh, and fast forward I can't even get a text back. It's been well over 2 years since then, but can't even get a text back, and yeah, she was wrong, but she just did that to all my friends, and we were just fucking dying, like, we couldn't believe this shit. She's like, oh, I charge 100, I do this, like, I forgot what she does, like, tarot readings and all this bullshit at some, like, that's what she does for a living. Like, her second job is spiritual healing or something, and she said she charges $130 an hour for that shit that I just did, like where she put her fucking hand on my forehead and said, oh, extracting, like she was screaming, she was like, oh, extracting, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, dude, these people are fucking nuts. You know, Jesus Christ. Like, I couldn't believe this shit. I'm like, you charge $130 for this garbage? Like, are you out of your mind? You know, she was telling all my friends, like, oh, I see a very dark future. Oh, no, in another year, a family member is gonna die. Oh, no, it's like such common sense shit. You know, maybe I should be a spiritual guru, like one of these people. I'll just, like, go up to the manlets and be like, oh, I can sense, oh, you are very depressed. Oh, like, be like one of those fucking people. Just, like, it's so, like, obvious. Like, there's this one girl, this summer, I was at my friend's, his frat house, his all-Indian frat house, and they were throwing a party. I was sitting in his room, just doing absolutely nothing, just sitting in his room. And supposedly, like, the cops came or some bullshit, and this girl and her boyfriend just came in the room. I was like, what the fuck are you doing in here? They're like, oh, the cops are here. And then, like, they were talking to me, like, the dude was, like, talking to me, and this girl was like, oh, I'm actually a spiritual, whatever the fuck it is, like, spiritual guidance person, reader or whatever. So she, like, had me put my palm out. She was like, oh, you're a really nice guy, but you're really depressed inside. It's like just common sense shit, you know, just by how someone looks, you know, like, oh, I can tell you are very, very depressed, and you're just touching my palm and shit, you know. And it just reminds me, like, all of this shit just is, like, so stupid, and, like, I don't know how people, like, it's just, like, bizarre. Like, cause I had this one friend who does all this shit. He's got, like, tons of mental illnesses, and he thinks, like, getting, like, a spiritual healer is gonna fix him and stuff, and he uses that as, like, therapy or whatever. But he was telling me, like, oh yeah, this lady, it's always a lady that does that shit, you know, the spiritual guidance and healing and tarot cards and all that. It's usually a lady, it's never a guy. I don't know why, but he said that the lady said that she was like some, like, old grandma lady, said to him, like, all this shit, like, she had him lay down, and he was going through his past lives, and he was telling me about it for like 2 hours straight at work a couple months ago. And I was like, are you for real? Like, he was like, oh, there's this one life where I was a Neanderthal, and I had my Neanderthal buddy, and we were walking through the fucking woods, and we got stuck in a cave, and we died down there. And then in another life, I was a goldfish. And in another life, I was an eagle flying through the sky, and a hunter shot me. And in another life, and I'm like, I just couldn't believe, like, I was just, like, trying so hard not to laugh. I'm like, you actually believe this shit? You know? Like, how the fuck, like, oh, I saw so many of my past lives. There were so many past lives. Oh, like, what does that even, how is that gonna help you at all? You know, how is these spiritual healers, how are they gonna help you at all? I honestly don't see how. Like, I don't know, it's just fucking bizarre. But that stripper who had, like, 2 jobs, she did that, and, the spiritual shit was fucking bizarre, man. Who the fuck does that shit? She kept saying, extracting, making these fucking slurping noises on my forehead, like touching my forehead, like, oh, it needs to come out, the information needs to come out, like, what the fuck? She's like, oh, you're gonna get married in 6 months. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I haven't had one girl interested in me in my life. 6 months. Jesus Christ, it's been years, you know, years and years. I can't like, I don't understand any of this shit, dude. It is the biggest cope. Like, if you pay for these spiritual healing sessions, she said 130. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But if you pay for that shit, I mean, yikes. That's all I have to say is yikes.